Welcome to the Morning Track Power Hour. I'm Dr. Andrew Scaff. He is Dr. Michael Orman, Esquire. On today's show, we'll be recapping the AFC and NFC championship games. We'll give a little preview for the Super Bowl coming up in 2 weeks. But we'll begin today's show once again, same position we've been in for many, many, many weeks, Mike. Chiefs have won another close game. Now, are you confident in the Chiefs' ability to go ahead and advance, win their third consecutive Super Bowl, Mike?
Well, I guess I'm more confident now than I was last week since they only have to win one more game to win the Super Bowl rather than winning two games to win the Super Bowl. So, and I actually, for some reason, feel a little bit better about their chances against the Eagles than I did against the Bills. Maybe it's because I thought that the Bills had built up so much, Chiefs animosity that maybe that would push them over the top this season. And it didn't end up working out for them. I guess the Eagles could have done the same. They've built up some anti-Chiefs animosity, but they also did win a regular season matchup against the Chiefs last year, so maybe some of that has dissipated, or maybe it's the same thing as the Bills win the regular season, lose in the postseason. Um, so I don't know. I think Mahomes looked really good against the Bills, so I feel good about that. He ran the ball well and he threw the ball well. Um, so maybe I feel a little bit because last time against the Eagles, he was still his ankle was really bothering him, although he did have a couple of big scrambles in the Super Bowl game. But uh,
Yeah.
that was a game that seemed like for the most part the Eagles dictated it, but the Chiefs still somehow won, and they didn't, they scored a lot of points against the Eagles. So I think they can.
Yeah.
The Eagles defense is supposed to be very good again, but I don't know how good it really is. They didn't play a great schedule from what I saw. I remember I don't believe they played Detroit in the NFC. I don't think they played any of the real AFC powers, if I remember correctly.
Mm.
So I don't know who they beat necessarily. They played um, the AFC. They played like the Chiefs. They played the NFC South as their divisional games. Uh, and they played the they did play. They played. I guess they did. I guess they did play. They played the AFC North. So they won against. They did beat the Ravens in Baltimore. So I guess they did beat the Ravens. They beat the Ravens and they beat the Steelers. Um, I was thinking they played the AFC South because they had played the Jaguars, but that was just because I don't. I guess they just played the Jaguars for some reason.
Yeah.
But yes, I guess maybe they did play some good teams, but um, they didn't. They. So but I was thinking they were in the less, I think, less good conference. And the NFC is not quite as good at the top as the AFC. Although they did beat Baltimore. Baltimore was weird this season though, so they had some weird easy losses, I thought. Maybe
Yeah.
that shows how good Baltimore kind of wasn't. I don't know. Um, but I feel like the Bills were as good or better than the Eagles. I don't know why exactly. I think maybe because Jalen Hurts, I don't think is as good a quarterback as Josh Allen is. And I think he's a good runner, but I don't think he's even as good a runner as Josh Allen is. So maybe that's why I feel a little bit better about the
Well,
Chiefs'
and
chance.
Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson are, talked about as being, one and two in whichever order in the MVP race, and Jalen Hurts isn't really mentioned in that race either. So
No, no. And I guess you also think of I don't think of the coaching as being great on the Eagles either. I think we both think of Sirianni as being sort of a doofus.
clownish, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah. And you think maybe the best teams have the best coaches and the best quarterbacks, and it seems like the Eagles have been built without that.
Yeah.
I
We
don't-
have a
in
we have a competent quarterback though. He's not like a free thrower or a risky quarterback. He does run the ball,
He's
has run the
competent.
ball a bit more, but he's
Yeah.
not inefficient or reckless.
But you put him maybe on the level of Purdy rather than the level of Josh Allen for sure.
Sure.
Uh,
Well,
and you
Josh
think,
Allen had been considered reckless
Mhm.
until this year because he was
Yeah,
throwing a lot of interceptions. And that not so
Mhm.
many now.
No, but I guess you also think of the coaching. You don't think of Sirianni as good as being as good a coach as Kyle Shanahan, for example. So I guess it
No.
seems like in some ways the Eagles are a less formidable version of the 49ers. They're running, I guess they're maybe you can call their running backs McCaffrey when he's healthy versus Saquon kind of a wash, probably. Maybe Saquon's the better runner out of the backfield, but probably McCaffrey's the better receiver out of the backfield. Although they both can do both.
Yeah.
Um,
But you did say the most important thing though about when he's healthy,
yeah,
which is for McCaffrey, which is not
not
all the time and
but he was
not
healthy
hardly
during
at
he
all
was
this
healthy
year.
for he was healthy for the Super Bowl last year though,
Last year,
uh,
yes. Yeah.
um, which is a big deal. And I think it's also I think Debo Samuel and Ayuk are kind of comparable when they're healthy to the healthy, which AJ Brown and
Devontae Smith.
Devontae Smith.
Yeah.
So I think there's some similarities
Yeah.
there. Um, the defenses are both good, but maybe I think they're very young in Philadelphia. They have a young secondary. I think rookie corners are starting. Um, and so I think the Chiefs could exploit that. Um, I don't know if the defense of Philadelphia is as good as it was 2 years ago when Hassan Reddick and people like that were on the team. So um, yeah, I don't know. So I guess I feel a little more confident about the Chiefs' chances against Philadelphia than against Buffalo. Um, but you want to talk about the games you want to go through? Maybe we talk about the NFC Championship a little bit and then go back to the Chiefs.
Let's do it.
So I guess one thing that does give me pause a little bit for the Super Bowl is that the Eagles did so well in the NFC Championship game when they won 55-23. They won
Right.
by 50 points. They had, I think, touchdown, seven rushing touchdowns, which was like the first since
Yeah.
the 1940 something Chicago Cardinals. Uh, I think was the
Yes.
last team to run for that many touchdowns in the in a championship game. So I
Wow.
guess
Yeah.
that is something to also could say they're peaking a little bit early. Uh, the last team to score more than 50 points in a conference championship game before
Yeah.
the Philadelphia, that was the Buffalo Bills. And of course, they did not win the Super Bowl that year. Uh, they beat the Raiders 51-3
Oh
in,
wow.
I think that was the first Super Bowl loss. That was when they lost to the Giants on the wide right Scott Norwood kick. Uh, but that was 30 something years ago now. But they scored 50 it was 51-3 over the Raiders in the AFC Championship game. So even more of a dominant uh, championship game. So um, maybe you could say the Chiefs are more battle tested uh, than the command than the Eagles were against the Commanders.
Yeah,
Um,
because they went through the Rams and then the Commanders. They didn't really struggle in either of the games, but
they were
neither
good.
team put up that much of a fight. Really,
Well, the Rams were close, and the
it, it got relatively close, but it wasn't really that close,
mhm.
right?
Yeah,
I don't. I mean, I don't know. The score was fairly close, but they didn't seem like they were really in it a lot of the time.
yeah, yeah. That's true.
But still,
They beat the Packers in the first round.
yeah,
Those did. I'm
yeah,
looking. I'm looking at historical data uh, at blowouts in the NFC Championship game. How often those teams go on to win the Super Bowl? Uh, since the year 2000, uh, the Giants beat the Vikings 41-0. In 2000, they lost the Super Bowl. Um, the Buccaneers beat the Eagles 27 to 10 in 2002. They won. The Eagles beat the Falcons 27 to 10. They lost. I'm looking at games where it was like more than 20 points, blowouts. Seahawks beat the Carolina Panthers 34-14, lost. Bears beat the Saints 39-14, lost. Blowout. There wasn't another blowout until 2015 when the Panthers won 49 to 15 over the Cardinals. They lost the Super Bowl. Then the next year, the Falcons won over the Packers 44 to 21. They lost. The next year, the Eagles beat the Vikings 38 to 7. They won the Super Bowl. Um, Eagles beat the 49ers 2022 31 to 7. They lost. So it seems like the blowout winners of the NFC Championship game go on to lose the Super Bowl as much or more than they win the Super Bowl. So that doesn't seem to bode well for, again, maybe it doesn't matter so much what the championship game score.
Yeah.
Um, I just went back to 2000. I was cherry picking that data, but and it was 20
Well, it's
point
probably the
plus,
most relevant data to use for the current
yeah.
time, at least, anyway.
And I was using 20 point plus wins. So
Yeah,
as my margin for blowouts. Um, I don't know when the last.
that seems fair.
So yeah, the 51 to 3 score was the 1990 uh, season. Buffalo Bills beat the then LA Raiders 51 to 3. So since 2000, there have been exactly there was 2014, the Patriots beat the Colts 45 to 7. They won that Super Bowl. The Patriots then won another game by 19 the next in 2016 and won the Super Bowl. But the AFC Championship games have been much closer. There haven't been blowouts in the AFC Championship game since 2000. There's only been one game decided by 20 or more points compared to the NFC Championship game, which has, I'd say, six or seven decided by 20 or more points. So I don't know what that tells us. Is that just random, or does that tell us that the NFC has been sort of top, maybe very top heavy and not as competitive throughout?
Well, I think we've thought that in general for quite a while
Yeah.
on in our discussions on this show in the last
Hmm.
several years.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
And the AFC tends to be pretty competitive.
Yeah, but I think yeah, I was just I was strange. I was thinking because I don't remember going through that, but and thinking the NFC Championship game is often a blowout, but the AFC Championship game rarely is a blowout. And you think
Hmm.
that would be the opposite of the case because you think the AFC has been so successful since 2000, partly because the Patriots have won so many Super Bowls and the other
Yeah.
AFC. I think it's been at least probably even between the AFC and NFC since 2000. In the 80s and early 90s, it was always the NFC winning the Super Bowl. That was when the Bills lost four straight, and the Broncos
Yeah.
would always get blown out, and whoever was in the
The tough
AFC
luck loser type,
yeah,
yes.
the
AFC
play the
teams.
85 Bears or something, or you know um, so the NFC won every Super Bowl from 1984 through 1996.
Wow. That's a long stretch.
And um, they also won in 81 and 82. They only lost one time. They only lost the 83. So from 81 through 96, 16 years, they only lost one. They went 15 and 1 in those 16 years.
Who won that 83 Super Bowl?
That was the Raiders, won against the Redskins.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, which was, yeah, surprising, I guess. Yeah. So 15, so they won 13 in a row and 15 out of 16. But since then, it's been pretty even. Um, but yeah, so I
So
guess I was thinking, I don't know what, I guess the NFC was, I don't know what made the NFC better for so long in the, it seemed like it was maybe defenses were better. on the NFC side, and they had bigger. I guess they had bigger star power at quarterback mostly, but I don't know. We don't think of the Bear. It seems like it was mainly the 49ers. But you still had John Elway and Jam Marine, like, all the lot of good quarterbacks in the AFC, but they never did much. Maybe it was,
Yeah,
I don't know why the
for
team.
titles at least. Yeah.
Yeah, it was, but it wasn't like also a lot of different NFC teams won those Super Bowls. There were only a handful. It was only the 49ers, the Redskins, and the Cowboys that were winning most of them.
Hmm.
And the Giants, I guess, won a couple too. Um, but they were won by a handful of teams mostly. Uh, the Bears got one, and then the Packers got the last one. That was a Brett Favre winning Super Bowl. But yeah, but like the 49ers won four of those. The Redskins won three of those, and the Giants won two, and the Cowboys won three. So yeah, but it wasn't like a just a rotating cast of NFC teams. It was just a few NFC teams that were always at the top.
Yeah. Sort of dynastic eras,
Yeah, I don't know
mini
what
dynasties.
I don't know what the deal was though. With why was the NFC so dominant in the Super Bowl?
Yeah, I don't know. But since then, there has been a big shift towards offenses, and so maybe it's just the AFC has equalized the playing field in the Super Bowls by maybe being more offense centric earlier.
Hmm.
But it still has been like, defensive games in the playoffs are more common than they are in the regular season.
Yeah, yeah. I don't. Yeah, I
So,
was. I'm
yeah,
just
maybe that
looking up
brings them
on.
closer.
I'm looking up on. I just Googled why was the NFC so dominant in the Super Bowl in the 1980s. And some people say it's because the NFC was defensively oriented and the AFC was offensively oriented, and great defenses beat great offenses.
And that
Usually,
was the old adage for a long
back
time.
then, defense wins championships.
Right.
Although you could say like some of those teams had really good offenses though too, like the 49ers offense with Jerry Rice and Joe Montana was pretty good. Um, but most of those teams were defensively, I think, oriented. Um, but yeah. Um, so going back, I guess it doesn't it the big win in the NFC Championship game does not necessarily correlate to a win in the Super Bowl for the winning team. So the Chiefs, I guess, don't have to really. That's not something the Chiefs will have to worry about necessarily, at least if you rely on historical data.
Right, right. But even just looking at this particular game, though, what did you see from Philly that like made them so successful against Washington? Was it just forcing all those turnovers, or the big running game, or what was it that you thought stood out for Philly in
I
their
think it
win?
was I think it was mainly the turnovers that Washington provided them, and how that I guess that Washington doesn't have that. So it looked a lot like the reverse of the Washington Detroit game, where Washington won big against Detroit because Detroit turned the ball over five times, and this time Philadelphia won big over Washington because Washington turned the ball over four, five. I don't remember how many turnovers they had, at least four. Um,
They seem to
maybe
come in like the worst times for a turnover.
yeah,
Like they just start to get somewhere and then immediate turnover. Yeah, four turnovers, three fumbles and one interception.
yeah. So yeah, I think it was also, I think probably the Redskins had, the Redskins, the Commanders. I was thinking of the '80s Redskins because we were talking about the
Yes.
winning teams there, but the Commanders probably had reached their real limit. I don't, they were a good team, but they, I think Also, I think since Philadelphia had played them already twice before because they're a divisional team, they probably knew their tendencies pretty well. And so, yeah, I think that this was probably about as far as the Commanders could go. I would have maybe liked to see the Commanders in the Super Bowl because I think the Chiefs would have a better chance at beating them than against the Eagles. I think the Eagles were
For
clearly
the reason
better.
why they didn't play all that well in
Yeah.
last.
Yeah.
But that 60-yard first run from Saquon Barkley is just a killer though to see for Washington fans, right? You have
Yeah.
all this hope going like, oh, we could go to a Super Bowl. No one expected us to, and then the very first play is a long run.
Yeah, but I guess you could say they could have recovered from that, and they sort of did in some ways. But they still just let the offense just mow them down. They
I think
didn't.
right after they gave up that touchdown, they immediately turned the ball over, and then they were like in such a big hole immediately that they ended up going
Yeah,
for a fake punt, which they got,
yeah, yeah.
and actually gave them, kind of put them back in a position to like be competitive. But yeah, they completely fell apart in the fourth quarter and gave up three more touchdowns
Hmm.
after like failing on fourth down attempts and because they were just in full desperation mode at that point. But
Hmm.
uh, but yeah, but those things that we saw in this game, Washington turning the ball over repeatedly, Philly running all over the place. Do you think those are things that the Chiefs are going to be able to contain in the Super Bowl? Then?
I think so. I think at least they'll be able to, or they'll just say, "Well, we'll let the run beat us," like they did in, uh, or, or I don't know. I think probably they'll concentrate on the run and make Hurts pass,
Yeah,
uh, of the passing game beat us. 'Cause I think they think that the secondary is going to be good, and their running defense has been much. Is their run defense is much better this year than it was a couple of years ago, even. So, I think
yeah,
um, they'll be content maybe to control the run like I guess they did mostly against Buffalo. At least they controlled the quarterback run a lot. Josh Allen didn't get a whole lot of traction, especially on his quarterback sneaks, which are similar to the tush pushes of Philadelphia. So maybe the Chiefs have a tell that they can combat that, um, since they look pretty good.
I do want to ask you about that. Were you watching when Washington kept trying to jump the snap
Yeah.
on the near goal line possession? Uh, and the announcers and officials were getting on to Washington a lot for jumping off sides. Were you getting upset with Washington or were you getting more upset with Philly because they wouldn't snap?
I'm more excited with Philly just because they run that stupid play. So I think it's just a stupid
Yeah,
play. It's just something that I think is against the spirit of what football should be, and I hate it. And it seems like the Chiefs somehow timed Buffalo's version of it and were able to anticipate the snap count. Buffalo maybe doesn't vary it
yeah,
as much as Philadelphia does. So I just hope, I don't know. I hope the Chiefs aren't in a lot of situations where they do the stupid tush push, because
right.
it's just lame. And it, I don't know. I just find it irritating, and it's not a an aesthetically pleasing play at all, and it just, what is it? It's just quarterback sneaks for 6 inches, and I don't care. I don't think it's great. I just wish teams would do something different. Um, and I like the way the Chiefs have handled fourth and short lately. At least if they don't give it to Pacheco, I don't think, or a straight run up the middle. Kareem Hunt didn't get a couple short ones last week, uh, against Buffalo. They had the Chiefs were
Successful
forced,
the last couple of weeks, but
and the Chiefs were forced to do the fourth. They actually ran it on. They actually went for it on fourth down in their own territory in the first half, with Mahomes being the runner. Um, and they had a second and it was like second and short, which I don't like a run on second and short anyway, uh, because it doesn't. There's not much reward for it. You just get a first down. You can get and if you think you can run it on second and short, you should probably be able to run it on third and short. Um, so you should, I think, go for a bigger play on second and short. Um,
yeah,
the on second and short, Kareem Hunt had a really short run, didn't get it. Third and short, he did the same thing. They didn't get it. So it was like, they got like 8 yards on first down and they got fourth down. And then so I was very surprised that the Chiefs went for it. Do you remember that sequence of events? And then it was a Mahomes quarterback keeper where he ran around the end. I guess it could have been an option or something to Pacheco, but
Yeah,
yeah, I was excited that the Chiefs actually went for it on fourth down and excited that they did something besides just running up the middle on a short distance play. So,
yeah.
um,
Well, because we know they're not going to do the QB sneak. They don't have a push push sort of play
yeah, they
either.
don't want
So
Mahomes to get hurting. I don't, at least they're still snake bitten about that quarterback sneak in Denver 5 years ago now,
right,
or where Mahomes dislocated his kneecap on some sort of freak accident.
yeah.
Um,
But yeah,
but
they haven't run a sneak since then.
no, but Mahomes had some design quarterback runs in this game, which I would say are just as dangerous as a sneak would be or more. But you know, and he had two rushing touchdowns for the first time ever in his career in one game, which I thought was
Yeah,
interesting. I was this close to betting on FanDuel. I didn't do it dumbly on anytime touchdown from Mahomes. Uh, I was going to bet like $10 on it. I would have won like 40 something dollars on a.
should have done it. Why didn't you do it?
I was a little bit too close to the game. When I was thinking about it, and I got a little frazzled, and I decided I'm just not going to do it. I just didn't want to bet any money. Um,
We'll be looking at a lot of prop bets here before the Super Bowl. That'll be
yeah,
your opportunity to be prepared ahead of time to make that
mhm.
bet instead of leaving it to the last minute.
That will. So maybe I'll do something in the Super Bowl,
Yeah.
um, but as we'll talk about that next week when we talk about our prop bets and our regular bets for the Super Bowl. So we won't do that this week since you want to build up to Super Bowl week next week. Any other things you remember from the Eagles Commanders game that you wanted to talk about? Anything that either bodes poorly for the Chiefs going forward or bodes well for the Chiefs?
Well, I think in general, I think Buffalo and Philly aren't terribly different teams. So maybe the Buffalo matchup for the Chiefs will actually help prepare them a little more for Philly than they would have been if they had to face someone else. But do you see it that way too, or do you not think they were similar?
Um, I think in some ways they are similar. I think the Ravens maybe are more similar to the Eagles since I think Hurts is somewhat limited as a passer in a way that I still think Lamar Jackson is somewhat limited as a passer. I
Yeah,
think Allen is not as limited as a passer. I think he is
he's
one of the
maybe a
best.
better passer, but doesn't have the best receivers. Where Philly has really good receivers, but maybe not the best passer.
That's true.
So I
Um,
don't.
yeah, I think with Brown and Devontae Smith, that's also what helps with that is that Jalen Watson is back, so there's a second good corner that the Chiefs have, and I think they can help. Um, help play, McDuffie on Brown or McDuffie on um, Smith, and then the other guys can help on the other quarter on the other wide receiver. So like it's one of those things where the Chiefs are becoming healthier at the right time again, and they seem healthier this year than they did last year at the time. Remember last year as well, uh, when they played the 49ers, Joe Tooney was out for the Super Bowl. He tore his pec, uh, and Nick Allegretti was playing guard, and it was, I guess, Donovan Smith as left tackle, but now um, we have Tooney out at left tackle again, and Mike Caliendo, no relation to Frank Caliendo, uh,
That we know of anyway.
that we know of. Yeah. They did make that joke a little bit in the CBS broadcast of Frank Caliendo versus Mike Caliendo. Did you remember that?
Are they
Did you
not
hear
the
that?
same person? They're not the same person?
Tony Romo tried to make he tried to do a do a Frank Caliendo John Madden impression, I think, as Mike Caliendo briefly.
Nice.
But
Nice.
yeah, that was but yeah, I do think Philadelphia is a good well, the Buffalo was a good test for Philadelphia. I think the Ravens would also have been a good test against Philadelphia. I think both of those teams are similar in a lot of ways to the Eagles. Um, I think yeah, because Cook I think is an underrated running back for the Bills. He's probably one of the top running backs now in the league. Maybe not the level of Saquon or Derrick Henry, but somebody I think he was, you know, up there in that elite category. So having that experience, and I think having I think maybe also having again a quarterback who might be hurt a little bit still, you he was pretty banged up in this divisional round. He looked a little better in the in the NFC Championship game. He had a couple of he had a couple of tush push touchdowns. And but he had like one other touchdown run that he looked pretty good on. But he only had about 19 yards of rushing, so he didn't run the ball as much as normally. So maybe that'll still be the case when it comes to the Super Bowl.
Yeah. So now that Washington is out, though, of the playoffs, do you think they'll be back in this situation next year, or do you think they'll have a bit of a letdown next year?
I guess it's more like I think they could be back, but I think it's more likely that they have a letdown. Sophomore slump. I don't. I think, but you have to see what are the other teams in the NFC gonna be. I
Right.
think likely the 49ers are going to be much better and have less injury bad luck than last year. So I think probably if all teams were healthy, San Francisco is still probably maybe the best team in the NFC. I think at least one of the top teams. They weren't even in the playoffs. Maybe it's a little bit like the Bengals or one of the best teams in the AFC who didn't make the playoffs. Um, but I still think the AFC from top to bottom was a better league than the NFC. Um, Maybe not top
Then
to
maybe you want to
bottom.
look specifically in their own division. So do you think the Giants will be better next
Oh, they
year?
can't get worse. The Cowboys probably can't get much worse.
But they
Although they
have a
did
new
hire
coach.
Brian Schottenheimer um, as their new coach. Yeah, I think because he was going to be a yes man to uh, Jerry Jones. That's what it seems like to me. I don't know what, but Schottenheimer is going to call the plays himself. He said, in the vein of Mike McCarthy, since actually Schottenheimer, as the offensive coordinator, did not call the plays this past season. So, but
He wants this opportunity to call a play for a change, I guess. And
yeah, I but going back to I guess back to the NFC, like yeah, I don't know how. I think maybe Daniels had a season that was better, was as good, or I guess it was probably maybe even better than CJ Stroud had last year, but Stroud took a step back this year.
yeah,
So I think it's tough. Once,
he didn't play as well, but they ended up in the same position though.
yeah, so I guess that could be the case. I
So
don't
it's sort
think,
of a slump just because he didn't actually progress forward, I guess, technically. Is that how you see it?
yeah, yeah, I would guess maybe the Lions won't be as good as they are next year because they lost their offensive coordinator and the defensive coordinator.
Yeah.
I would guess the Vikings, depending on what they do with their quarterback, may or may not be as good next year. The Bears will probably be a little better, you think?
Probably.
Um, the NFC South is still kind of a mess. Tampa might be better, but they lost their offensive coordinator. So I don't, maybe it's hard to say what's going to come out of the NFC. Green Bay, I think, will probably be as good or better than they were this year.
They seem
Um,
to be pretty injured this year, and
yeah.
yeah,
The Rams, I think it's hard to say if Stafford's coming back or Cooper Kupp's coming back. So yeah,
yeah.
I think it's a little less certain how good those NFC teams are, um, but I think the odds say that you're not going to make unless you're the Chiefs, you're not going to make the championship game every year. So it's like and especially if you lose that game, I think you're likely not to make it back the next year.
They had quite a turnaround. I mean, they were not a very good team last season to
Yeah,
being what a 12 win team in the
12 and
NFC
5.
Championship game.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I mean that's a huge turnaround.
Great season. Yeah.
Yeah,
And I think people are thinking that Jaden Daniels will move them forward, but it's hard to say. Jaden Daniels, if he is I think 2 years older than CJ Stroud is. He's
sorry.
I think so. I'm gonna look up Stroud's age. Stroud is 23 years old. He was born October 3rd, 2001.
Daniels is December 18th, 2000.
Okay, so only 1 year older
Yeah,
than than Stroud. Okay. But Stroud's already played in one more year. Yeah. So Stroud is
right.
2 years ahead in his development uh,
Yeah,
of than I guess compared to Daniels. So Stroud's season. So essentially, it'd be Stroud next year would be Daniels this year, and he's already had 2 years of NFL experience behind him. Is that right? Is that how you
and
would put it?
he's 1 year, one more. He's played one more season in the NFL, right?
He's one more season old, and he's one season young. He's 1 year younger and played one more season. That's 2 years, I guess,
Oh,
difference.
I see. Yes, I got you. Yes, now I
Yeah,
got it. Yeah,
yeah. And Bo Nix is the same, I think. I don't. Bo Nix is almost a year older than Jaden Daniels. Jaden Daniels is December of 2000. Bo Nix is February of 2000.
yeah,
Uh, so he's going to be 25 in a month. So he is, almost 3 years behind in development compared to CJ Stroud. Uh,
yeah, yeah. So you're saying you should be expecting more from Stroud because has
I
still
would be
higher ceiling, maybe, but because he's younger.
Yeah, I would say Stroud is more surprising because he was younger and he was doing it at a higher level. Whereas, I think Daniels and Nix were both kind of professional college quarterbacks. They played for like 5 or 6 years each in college.
Yeah,
So Stroud is a little more like Mahomes coming out early, and so
yeah,
that's how I see it anyway.
yeah.
Reaching their
That
maybe
makes
they'll
sense.
reach their potential later, but what do you yeah, so going on to do you want to talk about the Chiefs Bills matchup?
Absolutely.
Uh one of the things the themes of the Chiefs this year has been uh referee decisions, officiating decisions. There were a couple of maybe controversial calls that went the Chiefs' way. There were also some things that didn't go the Chiefs' way. There were several untimely penalties on the Chiefs. There were a couple of false starts that were missed on Bills touchdown runs. I don't know if you remember seeing those. Um, but maybe the biggest plays were that Xavier Worthy catch where it was contested with the Bills defensive back and
You mean where the
uh,
defensive player actually caught the ball or they just took it away from him on the way to the ground
yeah, so you wrestled it away, but then the ball hit the ground as well. It didn't move though. So do you
at
think that
all?
was correctly ruled catch for Worthy, and
I
why?
think so, because I think even by the way the NFL rules are, if both players are in possession of the ball, the offensive player automatically is the recipient of the
Yeah.
ball and has the catch officially. So, I mean, if the ball didn't move at all and you think they both had a hold of it, then Worthy gets the catch and that's the end of the story. But even if he didn't catch it, there was still a penalty on the play. So the Chiefs still would have had a first down, albeit not from the same position on the field. So it really wouldn't have made that much of a difference like, it didn't like mean it would have been a turnover or right. It wouldn't have like
Yeah.
completely upended the game. So I don't think that that play was controversial at all. And the challenging it was stupid. It was just a waste of time because it wouldn't have ended, it wouldn't have done anything though.
Well, I guess you could have, yeah,
They
it
just
could
would
have
have, they
said
just would have moved the ball on the field.
they could have gotten maybe 15 yards uh, from it. The Bills could have gotten if it had been ruled
Something.
incomplete because it was a 5 yard, I think it was a 25-yard pass or something like that, and a 5 yard penalty.
Yeah.
So I think it would have been 20 yards difference on the field. So
Yeah. But I mean, it still would have been a first down. It still would have been,
yeah,
the Chiefs were still moving the ball fairly well. So I don't know that it really had that much of a difference besides the position on the field.
yeah.
But it just seemed like a wasted challenge. And it was so late because the Chiefs actually ran the whole play before the officials
Yeah,
stopped.
it was strange when they called. Yeah, they didn't notice that he had thrown the flag until after the next play was run.
Like
Um,
completely done. And then you see, oh, we're challenging the last play. It's like,
yeah,
how do you even do that? Yes.
yeah, but I thought it was a catch too because again the tie goes to the offensive player, and if the ball hits the ground, but the player has control of it and it doesn't move, that's usually ruled a catch. The
Yeah.
Chiefs uh, were have been the victims of that particular call a number of times. It seems like so. Um, yeah, I thought that was a catch. I guess maybe the more controversial one was uh, the failed tush push in the fourth quarter on fourth and short, where Josh Allen maybe got the ball far enough to make a first down, but there wasn't really a good angle of it, and they ruled it short on the field, so the play stood. Did you think that Allen got that first down, or do you think that was the right call that was made?
This is like really hard to see. When I saw it live, the first shot, it looked like it was really close, possibly past the line. They had a different angle where it was like, well, it looked like his back was right to the line, but the ball was in front of him and the line was behind him then. So it's like, well, I can't have gotten to the line because it wasn't, the ball was on the wrong side of his body to have been able to have crossed the line at all. So it can't be a first down. So it all just depends on that. But in these situations now, they actually have that replay assist that said where to spot the ball, and it was behind the line. The officials said it was behind the line. They looked at it again. They said it was behind the line. So what do you do here, right? At the way the rules are set up, that's how they have to call it, I think. I know the announcers didn't help, you know, quell any argument about it because they were looking at where the officials were running down the sideline and then moving back as they came across, trying to make that sound like it was like they were moving the line
Hmm.
as they were running in because they had to like go around players as they worked their way back to where the ball was going to be spotted. That isn't, and that gets annoying. Though. The announcers were talking about plays and they're not even talking about the correct way. Did you think that too when you were watching the game that they were maybe trying to fuel a controversy even though there wasn't necessarily one?
Possibly. I don't know. I think probably Allen might have gotten across. I'd say about 65% sure that he made it, and about
No,
30% sure that he didn't, but that's not enough evidence to overturn it. Plus, it was a stupid play. Why don't you do something different on fourth down to make it at least to get
yeah,
it? Like if it was by one inch or something, I think you're either way. I think you deserve whatever gets called. You should at
you'll
least
get
if you
some of those, you won't get some of those. It's not up to
um,
you. You're leaving it to the officials to decide if you got it or not. Yeah,
yeah.
I agree.
So at least make it obvious if you're going to make the first down. Uh,
Yeah,
yeah, and the offense has all the advantage in that play anyway. If you can't get 2 inches on your stupid tush push, I don't think you deserve to get the benefit of the doubt. I would say I'd never give the tush push if it's close. I would always go against the tush pushing team because I hate that play so much.
yeah.
Uh, so that might
They
just
ran it
be
the same way every time. It was like always to the left guard,
yeah.
and
That's what I
Allen
mentioned. Yeah,
always steps back first before he goes forward, which, you know, makes it easier to actually stop them.
Well, I
And
guess to go left, he has to go around some of the feet and stuff like that to
yeah, but that's not how the tush push play that Philly runs is. It's just you just go straight forward. You don't have to do anything.
yeah. Well,
You just
Allen
take the
had
ball
been
and you move the fall, and you don't even
yeah.
do anything.
Allen had been successful with his method though against non-Chiefs teams, but
Yeah,
against it failed. So I'm happy that it failed, but I still don't like that play no matter who runs it. So maybe that might just yeah. So I'm glad that again they shouldn't get the benefit of the doubt on those plays. If you can't there if it's too much in the ball's too much in the scrum, whatever gets called gets called. You can't tell. You know, run a play where you can tell where the ball is for the official's sake,
yeah,
and you
yeah.
know.
Because that's I mean that's always been the rub with that type of play is that if you want to get a play overturned, it has to be clear and evident, right? That
Yes.
it was something other than what was called on the field. And if it's in the middle of a big pile of people, well, you can't see it. There's no way to see it.
Yeah. And the one time that Josh Allen, when he held the ball out that one time when they did get the first down, he fumbled it and the Chiefs almost recovered it. That was the Chiefs were actually very unlucky in their fumble luck.
Well,
There
unlucky.
were there were five fumbles in the game, and Buffalo recovered all five fumbles. Four fumbles by Buffalo, one fumble by the Mahomes on that. You wonder if the Chiefs hadn't fumbled it there, if the Chiefs could have run away with the game because they weren't being stopped on offense.
Yeah.
Um,
Or if they were able to pick up one of those other fumbles too, because the one that Josh Allen lost, not the one in when he stuck the ball out, but when he on one of the dropbacks, he like managed to like scoop the ball with one hand
mhm.
as he was like falling backward.
Yeah.
That was pretty crazy that he was able to get pick that up one-handed. 'Cause that doesn't usually work on a loose ball type of play.
Yeah, the Buffalo was very fortunate in that they didn't fumble the ball. I mean, they didn't lose the fumbles, any
Yeah,
of the fumbles. So the Chiefs, I thought, played pretty good defense, even though the Buffalo scored a lot of points. But I think it was also I think funny that Buffalo simply kicked extra points rather than chased points and gone for two, they would have been in a better position at the end of the game uh, than they ended up being. So they would, yeah, it's one of those. When they went, it was 21-17, and then they decided to take the point off the board and try to make it 21-18 in the first half. I thought that was kind of silly. Uh, that seems like you're only tempting fate and you're taking you're even though it's only 1 yard um you know
that's
it's
a
it's
dumb rule though too. If there's an offside penalty on a kick, extra point kick, that you can move the ball halfway to the goal line and go
as
for
if
two instead.
yeah, because the kick's not there anymore. It's not a short extra point anymore. It's the mid-range extra point. Yeah, you
Right.
could yeah. I
I
understand.
think that's one of the dumber rules that you can take a penalty and change your decision on like which type of extra point you're going for.
I guess it discourages chicanery from the uh defensive defensive team or the special teams team because they could say, well, who cares if the extra point is 5 yards closer? We can still try to block it, and they still won't be able to go for two that way or something. I don't know.
That seems like you're just trying to like officiate something that hasn't actually happened or been a problem yet, though.
Yeah,
That's weird. It's a weird way to decide the rule.
it
But
is. Um,
well, what if you made the argument that the Chiefs actually won this game on draft day, Mike? Because it was the first round draft pick was the Chiefs moving up, trading with Buffalo to get Xavier Worthy.
did
And Worthy had a huge game, probably his best game of the season there against Buffalo. Do you think that had something to do with it?
Yeah, it was funny because obviously the most famous Chiefs trade up with Buffalo is the Mahomes pick. So Mahomes and Worthy both outplayed Allen and Um, uh, Keon Coleman was the
Yeah,
Buffalo
Coleman, that's right. Yes.
draft. But I think maybe something that wasn't mentioned was the pick of Trent McDuffie. The Chiefs traded up to get McDuffie in the first round of the 2022 draft. They actually jumped ahead of Buffalo, who wanted McDuffie, and Buffalo ended up picking Kyer Elam, who has been so bad he's been demoted to third string. He was a first round draft pick, and he was the guy who came in at the end of during this game when Binford went out with the second
Concussion symptoms, I guess. Yeah.
concussion.
Yeah.
Yeah. So McDuffie is a much better corner than Elam has been. Uh, so the Chiefs in some ways got three players that Buffalo could have gotten or wanted to get in on draft day, and
Yeah.
maybe did mean to trade because I think the Chiefs knew Buffalo was trying to get a corner in the 2022 draft, and they
Jumped.
in and got McDuffie. That was the same year they drafted Carl Aftis as well, but I think they got McDuffie because they thought he was going to the Bills, and
Didn't want a
they
guy they like going to the Bills.
yeah.
Because I know we talked about Buffalo, yeah, trading the pick to the Chiefs was odd anyway, but then the fact that Buffalo ended up taking a wide receiver with their dropped down pick made it even stranger though, too, is that, why trade a pick, trade down to take the same position that the guy that the team you're trading to ends up taking? Isn't that I always thought that was weird, and it seems like
I
that has had an effect in this
yeah,
game even too.
I think that's what the Chiefs did as well when they picked Sky Moore. They traded down, and I think the team that they traded with ended up picking like some other receiver instead, and like George Pickens got through, and like some other receivers were picked. I guess maybe you could say there's pluses and minuses to having picked George Pickens. Is that A, he's a really good player, but B, he's a hothead and a prima donna that you probably don't want on your team anyway. Um,
Possibly not, yeah.
but still, I think he'd probably be better than Sky Moore,
Yeah.
um, who I think is out still with
Yeah, I
his.
haven't heard anything about him recently. So I know they said McCole Hardman was not going to be reactivated,
Yeah, so I
but I
guess
haven't
Moore,
heard anything about Sky Moore.
he's not going to be reactivated either, I guess. Um, core muscle injury. October they put him on injured reserve. Um, so yeah, it's not. I don't think that's the terrible thing, but so it's interesting that the Chiefs, how well they've done on some of the draft picks, but they've missed on a couple as well. But they still overall done very well under Brett Beach, I think. Um, and even the best drafters don't get everything right all the time. So, or free agent signings haven't always been great, or trades like the I don't. It's yeah. I guess I was happy. There were some good signs. I think uh, you know that the Chiefs, besides Worthy, a couple of other receivers caught passes that looked good. Juju made a couple big catches. At least Hopkins and Brown got one or two each.
When they
Um,
went to Hollywood Brown, immediately, first play
yeah,
was right to Brown. So they already had gone to a completely different game plan than they did in the previous week. You could
yeah,
tell.
because Kelsey didn't get anything. He only got two or maybe two catches,
I think
20
two
yards.
catches, yeah. Yeah.
So I don't. Yeah, you wonder what the Super Bowl is going to be like. Is it going to be Kelsey, a big day for Kelsey, or is it going to be a spread them out game again? And um, yeah,
I do think a lot of that is just if Kelsey is like being doubled up or extra covered, then somebody else has to be open. And Mahomes seems to
yeah,
be, able to find that person, whoever it is.
yeah. It seems like Worthy has been the guy a lot of the times. I'm a little surprised how well Worthy has been doing lately. It seems like
Those last two games have been fantastic.
it's a little bit like what Rasheed Rice did at the end of last year too, where he became a real receiving threat when he wasn't that great in the early going. Um,
Yeah.
so maybe that bodes well for next year with Rice and well, if Rice is back from injury, also if Rice is back from his legal issues.
Right. Because we don't
So
know what that's going to be yet.
yeah, yeah. Um,
You almost
do we,
wish the league would have stepped in and gone ahead and punished him instead of not delaying the punishments
well,
and then
maybe I
having to be
guess
injured.
yeah.
Yeah.
The Rice did help win some of those early games, and you might.
Yeah.
So if Rice was out of those early games, maybe the Chiefs would have lost one or two more and not gotten home field advantage.
That's true. But I just mean, if you knew the season was going to be lost,
Yeah,
you may as well go ahead and serve that suspension at the same time.
yeah. I guess yeah. The question is, what are the Chiefs going to do next year at wide receiver? Are they going to bring back Hopkins or Brown? Are they just going to be gone? Um, there's a lot of the Chiefs tight end question is also it's been I think there was it the third, fourth, and fifth tight ends were all out for the season.
Yeah.
At one point, Hicks and Fortson and
Hendershot.
Hendershot's back though, but
He
yeah,
is back.
yeah. So that was a yeah. It's been a weird year for Chiefs on the receiving end because Mahomes didn't throw for that many yards this year. He didn't have a ton of touch. He had some touchdowns, but not up to his usual standards.
Right.
Um, and they didn't have a ton of rushing yards either. They just didn't have a lot of offense this year, it seemed like, but they still won all their games basically that Mahomes played. So um, he seems to be beating the system somehow,
With just enough.
just
Though.
enough.
Not there's no excess anywhere across the entire season.
Is this the ultimate Andy Reid gentlemanly season?
It sure is.
If the Chiefs win the Super Bowl by a small margin, I think it will be. I hope they don't win by a small margin. I hope they win by a large margin going away, uh, or at least a comfortable margin. Uh,
You think they'll end up like being ahead by three going into the final minutes and they take a safety just to let Philly go to the spread?
over the spread. That would be awful, I think. That seems like it's just begging for something to go wrong. I don't know.
But I mean, that's essentially what happened
Yeah,
in the Houston game,
yeah.
where the safety did allow for the spread to be covered.
The
Yeah,
spread at least was a wider spread rather
it was
than
more than one score, just
one
barely.
score. Yeah, yeah. That would. Yeah, we'll see what so our early idea for the Super Bowl is that the Chiefs minus 1.5 is the way we're both going to bet. We'll talk about the other lines, the over under. I think it's over under 49.5. We'll decide whether we want to go over or under that number and the money line and all those and all the prop bets and the various over under on rushing and receiving and passing totals. We'll go through that stuff. Next time. Do we want to talk about our bets from this past week? We haven't done that yet.
Sure. That is
Um,
that is our betting extravaganza where we have lots of prop bet too, or it's
yeah,
our more wild picks that we usually do.
yes. I don't know if we want to
These are
run
fun.
through all of our over-unders and bets in the conference championship, but essentially we each won a little bit of money on our betting uh, in our bets for the conference championship games. We both bet um, the Washington Philadelphia game spread. We actually both bet on Washington, so we both missed that one. You actually went so far as to bet on Washington to win the game. I bet on it to be a close game in Philadelphia winning, so I won the money line bet on Philadelphia. Uh, and I also bet, of course, I bet the under. You bet the over, and you won on that one. So we were each only uh, 1 out of 3 on that game, so it wasn't so good. And you
Yeah.
actually were ahead on that one because you got the one of the 50-50 odds essentially rather than the of
The money
minus,
line,
minus 280 money line that I got.
weaker
Uh,
odds. Yeah.
Buffalo, but the Buffalo Kansas City game, we both did better. You did exceedingly well in that you picked the Chiefs to win. You picked the Chiefs on the spread. They won by 3, so they covered the spread. And you also picked the over. I picked the under, so I missed that one. So you got 3 out of 3 in the Buffalo Kansas City game. So essentially, that was the extent of uh, your lead over me because I went under on every um, over under prop bet. Uh, Jalen, from Jalen Hurts passing yards to Isaiah Pacheco rushing yards. Um, we had, I went under on all of those. I ended up getting several. I ended up getting 7 out of the 14 correct. I actually got 7 out of the 12 individual uh, prop bets correct by betting all under. I missed the 2 team totals that both went over because both games were very high scoring. So in a way, I thought uh, I would have done exceedingly well had I gone all under in games that would have been lower scoring because likely the offensive output would have been lower as well.
Even lower still.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
maybe I'm still thinking of going all unders for the Super Bowl on these uh, individual rushing totals, individual passing totals uh, uh, for for teams. So um, and
But
maybe
maybe the most surprising under of the day was the Saquon Barkley under 125 and a half rushing yards, especially knowing that he had a 60-yard touchdown run on his first
yes,
touch, and then he had 2 other touchdowns in the game, but his total yardage for the rest of the game was less
amazing.
than his total on that one run, which kept him
Yeah.
under the
And and
125.
Jalen, and Jalen Hurts
The
had only 16 yards
118.
rushing, and he had 3
Yeah.
rushing touchdowns that game too. So it
Yeah.
was a strange yardless touchdown full filled rushing
Yeah.
day.
Not many
The
yards, but very productive yards.
Yeah, and it was another day where Patrick Mahomes also outrushed Josh Allen. He also uh,
Mahomes is always one of the trickiest ones to pick for rushing because he frequently will have huge backwards rushes at the end of games where he
yeah,
takes knees for maybe 4 or 5 yard losses instead of, 1 or 2 yard loss like you would typically do.
this one he had 2 1-yard losses. He had 45 rushing yards on 9 attempts before the kneel downs at the end.
Yeah.
Uh, the Chiefs closed out the game very well. They actually ran some good plays on third and long. Although I think they tried. I think they didn't always need to be third long because they kept running into the pile basically for
Yeah.
second down. They raised the degree of difficulty I think to run the clock out. But it's good that the
But that
Chiefs do
final
that.
play then to Ryan, I think was he like the last guy that hadn't really had a play
Yeah,
in the
Pirine was his
game?
first. It was his first catch of
First
the
touch
game,
today?
his first touch. So that was, yeah, that was something.
Because what Watson ended up catching
The
the
2 point
2 point
conversion.
conversion,
He
which I
hadn't
think
seen the
meant
ball yet.
basically everyone was involved in some way, in some play at some point in the game, which was pretty
Yeah,
cool.
I guess Justin Ross, he was activated for the game. He didn't get anything.
Yeah.
Ramiki had some big returns.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, the Chiefs got everybody I guess Peyton Hendershot didn't have any receptions as the
Yeah.
third tight end or fourth tight end or whatever he is now. No Carson Steele action, but
No.
basically everybody else got something.
Well, whereas in the Houston game, it was like none of the wide receivers had
It was all Kelsey,
a
yeah.
catch at all. It was, yeah, Kelsey doing all the work and then the running backs, being involved. But it was mostly, Kelsey bearing all the burden on the receiving end.
Yeah. Did Noah Gray catch anything
I don't think so.
in the playoffs?
I don't think he's been pretty quiet.
Yeah, he did some against the Texans, I remember, but I don't
Yeah.
remember anything against the um uh uh, Bills, but
Yeah.
let's see. I'm looking it up now. The playoff game. This is looking on Pro Football Reference, but I don't know if it'll be on Pro Football Reference.
Yeah, sometimes they put this like the snap counts like behind their.
Oh, there it is. He didn't have any catches, and no targets, no catches at all, and that was the first game since week 2 in Cincinnati against Cincinnati that he had no catches and no targets.
For Gray.
Yeah. So, um,
We should actually just mention Worthy's line just because it was impressive. But 6 catches, 85 yards
a
on
touchdown.
7 targets. Yeah, had the touchdown.
Yeah. Yeah, it was
That
great. Great.
spectacular play where he pulled the ball away from the defender. That was, yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, great game.
Two really excellent catches in the playoff each playoff game, one in each playoff game. And he had the diving touchdown he had in this game.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, he did really well. Uh, oh, I was going to ask you. We haven't done scoregami yet. Do you think uh, 55 to 23 is a scoregami?
It has a better chance than 32-29, maybe. Ooh, well, I don't know. That 32-29 is pretty weird too. So yeah, which of the two scores is the more rare? Maybe that.
Okay.
I'll say
Well,
55-23 is more rare.
I haven't looked at 32-29 yet, but 55-23, this is only the second game ever that was 55-23. So
Okay.
it was very nearly, it's a playoff scoregami at least. Um,
Yes.
there was a game between the Colts and the Broncos in 1988 that was 55 to 23. Um, do you know who? So I'm sure you can guess who the quarterback was for the starting quarterback for the Denver Broncos that game.
When was it? What year was
I
it?
think 1988.
Yeah, okay, so that was LA.
Uh, and the father of a person we mentioned earlier, I don't know if we mentioned him in this episode or we mentioned him off the air today, was the backup quarterback. He actually played more than John Elway did in that game. I guess Elway got hurt or something. I'm not quite sure
Oh,
what. It's one of the comedy.
oh,
It was Gary
oh,
Kubiak. Clint Kubiak's
oh.
dad was the backup quarterback then.
See, I didn't remember that.
Actually threw for 2 touchdowns to John Elway's 1 touchdown that game.
Clint Kubiak. Like,
Uh, Chris Chandler was the quarterback for the um, Indianapolis Colts. He only threw for 1 touchdown. He threw for only 167 yards, and still somehow the Colts scored 55 points that game. Uh, Eric Dickerson ran for 159 yards and 4 touchdowns. So I guess that's where most of the touchdowns came from. But it didn't seem like the yardage was, I
I mean,
guess,
that's the top running back and the quarterback lines. That's still, just
yeah.
over 300 yards.
Yeah.
That doesn't seem like 55 points.
Denver had 4 turnovers that game.
That'll help.
Yeah. I guess all fumbles, no interceptions.
Wow.
Uh,
That's lucky or unlucky, depending on which team you're
yeah.
supporting.
Yeah. So the Broncos Colts was 55-23, just like the Eagles Commanders 55-23. That was the last, so that was only the second one of those. Let's say 32-29. Um,
Yes.
32-29. Also, there have only been 2 games ever that, oh, well, excuse me, there have been 8 games ever that were
Oh,
32-20. I was thinking there were only 2 games, 55-23. There have been 8 games, 32 to 29. So you were correct. Uh, um, the last 32-29 game
maybe
was
maybe was Elway involved in the 32-29 game?
it appears that he was not involved in a 32-29 game, although the Chiefs were also involved in one 32-29 game back back in 2020. They beat the Saints 32 to 29 in New Orleans.
Nice.
Do you remember that? That was, I guess, the COVID year. You remember that?
Oh,
I remember that game. But I don't remember the score being 32 to 29. I remember the
yeah.
Chiefs won that Mahomes uh, game. And the Chiefs actually went to 13-1 in that game. That was another big Mahomes year. So that box score, Mahomes, he only threw for 254 yards in that game. Three touchdowns though. Uh,
One of them
but
was probably one of those ridiculous passes, like underhanded or left-handed or behind the back or
he
something
had one into the
crazy.
corner of the end zone. I remember. I think it was maybe to Hardman that nobody like. It didn't seem like anybody was going to catch, but then like Hardman suddenly was there and like nobody saw him. If I remember that correctly, was that Hardman? Let's see who caught touchdowns. Kelsey, Tyreek Hill, Hardman did catch a touchdown. It might have been
Yeah.
Hardman. Um, um, but yeah, that was against Drew Brees. With Alvin Kamara. Was Taysom
Probably in its
Hill.
prime then too, right?
Yeah, Kamara was good. Taysom Hill got a touchdown that game, rushing touchdown. Kamara and Latavius Murray each had receiving touchdowns, as did Lil Jordan Humphrey. One of my
Yes.
favorite players, Lil Jordan Humphrey.
Will
Uh,
Jordan.
Lil Jordan. But that was also a game where Clyde Edwards-Helaire had 79 yards rushing and Le'Veon Bell had 62 yards rushing. So each one of those players had quite a few rushing yards for the Chiefs that game. So that was a 32-29 uh, one of the 32-29 games. Uh, the first 32-29 game was actually in 2002. So there have been eight 32-29 games, but all since 2002.
Wow. That's pretty strange.
Yeah. I guess that's become a more normal score. Yeah. And New Orleans was the first team to score 32 to win 32-29 as well. So uh against Pittsburgh in 2002.
Wow.
Let's see who uh you probably won't guess who the Pittsburgh quarterback
Yeah, that
was.
would have been before Roethlisberger.
Yeah. This was he also was originally a Denver Broncos quarterback, if I remember correctly.
Hmm.
Yes, he was. And then he was out of the league for like 5 years. He didn't play for like 5 years for a while. Uh, he was Tom. It was Tommy Maddox, who was first
Hmm.
round quarterback that Denver drafted in 1992. For some reason, I don't know why they wanted to piss off John Elway or something, and then they got rid of him in 2 years, and then he was like vanished by the mid 90s when he was 24, and then suddenly he came back in 2001 uh, with the Steelers, and I don't know what
Hmm.
happened to him between like uh, 1994 and 2001. No, he was back. Took a hiatus from football. It said he was an insurance agent with Allstate for a while, uh, and then he played arena football in the XFL, and then went to be the Steelers back up to Cordell Stewart, uh, and began to play a little bit. So Tommy Maddox. Uh, we're really scraping the bottom of the barrel since we're talking about, I think, Tommy Maddox now. Um, yeah, Aaron Brooks was the New Orleans quarterback that year. You might remember him. But there were a lot of yeah, big names. Pittsburgh had a lot of big names. You know, it had Antoine Randall L, Jerome Bettis, Hines Ward, Plaxico Burress was on that team. I never forgot that Terrence Mathis played for the Steelers. I think of him as a Falcon mostly, but he played for the Steelers one year. Um, but anyway, I don't know. Is there anything else we want to talk about for the Chiefs Bills game, or should we wrap up this week's episode of the War Trek Power Hour?
And what were the betting totals then for the week? It was close.
It was close. I believe I won $14 and you won 75 or so dollars. So
Both positive. We shrunk our overall losses by a
Oh, I
little
won
bit.
I won $16. Excuse me, I won
16.
$16, not $14. So yeah, both positive, shrunk our overall losses. I'm still only minus 763 something. You're minus 2181 something. So
But maybe
about
the
four.
bleeding has stopped. Maybe that's the
Yeah.
main thing.
To staunch the bleeding, and maybe in the Super Bowl we will both be winners to come out ahead. Um, I guess we
Oh,
haven't
maybe
done.
one thing I wanted to ask you though about the a lot of the questions that were asked of the Chiefs after the game about them making history by having the opportunity to win a third straight quarterback. Is that you consider that to be making history?
Well, I guess they're one of the few teams to have been in the Super Bowl three times in a row.
Yeah, but that's been done before.
Yeah, but they haven't. No team has won two and then gotten back to the Super Bowl, I guess. So I guess that is historic. The best. There have been three teams that got
I
to the.
believe it's the same as going to three. But like if you win the third, that's different. That's a different now it becomes a different category, right?
Well, I guess winning two. I guess they're the closest team that has won back to back to defending the third time. So I guess that is in some ways you could say historic because they've
Yeah,
done
but
better
it just
on their back to
gives
back.
the opportunity to be historic, though, doesn't it?
Well, I'd say it's the best that any back to back. They've done the best that any back to back champion has ever done.
Yes, that is true. I don't know that I would call it historic. If they win a
Uh,
third, then it's sure. Yes, yes. But
well, they've
I
also
just thought that was funny.
they've
And
also
that
been
gets into our like hair splitting though. I think that
yeah.
I thought it was funny in
Well, they've also
that
been in five out of six Super Bowls, which is a record as well.
that has
Um,
yeah, that is a record.
so they were only two overtimes away from being in seven straight Super Bowls. They lost to the Patriots before they went to the first Super Bowl, and then that overtime loss to the Bengals in the after their first two appearances. So um,
Did
yeah,
you like that clip from Nick Wright that talked about the league doing nothing when the Chiefs lost in overtime and didn't get to touch the ball, but then as soon as Buffalo did it, they
yeah,
immediately changed the rule.
that was funny. Yeah. It is somewhat true. And also talked about how there'd be replay assist to like because they thought Mahomes got away with those calls in the in the game against the Texans because they weren't exactly personal fouls that should have been called perhaps. So there's going to be replay assist on some of those plays. Again, when the Chiefs benefit from something, it needs to be taken away,
Yes.
or it doesn't, or they're not going to, So I think it does go against a bit that idea that the Chiefs have this favoritism from the league, which makes no sense because the league is not it's not just a single entity. It's 32 owners of 32 teams that all want their teams to do well, and
Right.
if you're rigging the games in favor of one of those teams, I don't think that's gonna
31
that's
people will be upset, I'm pretty
yeah
sure.
yeah yeah
Well, and the commissioner isn't independent. He's hired by those 32 owners too.
yeah
So he's there to represent them. Like that
yeah
is his job, is to represent the ownership.
yeah. And they're making it as competitive, the games as competitive, their league as competitive as possible with the salary cap and all those other things.
Yeah.
And
Now they
while
may have like a preferred narrative, but they can't really control it though either.
yeah
So
yeah, I guess you could
and
say
also
they
like the officials are independent. They're not full-time employees. They have kind of a combative relationship with the officials
yeah
publicly in some ways. They write the rules to be interpretable rather than like clear cut. So yeah, I always think that's kind of odd. That it's odd anyway. Like I don't like the officiating concept most of the time, and it's hard. It would be make it makes it even harder for the league to like direct a narrative through
yeah.
officiating because of
I
their
think officiating
weird
is
rules anyway.
simply sometimes incompetent. I think they're trying to be as competent as they can be, but I think in some ways it's just impossible for them to, make some of these calls and to
Yeah.
see everything. So I do think the replay is helpful for that, but yeah, I don't think I don't think there's like outside gambling interests or whatever. I don't think it doesn't. I think the conspiracy talk. It's the same people that think vaccines are not what they're cracked up to be, or think that the election was stolen by against Donald Trump the first time. You know,
Yeah.
how did he win this time if the election was stolen before? You know, like well, what happened? Why did they steal didn't they steal this one again? You know, it's the same. It's almost like if the Venn diagram is a pretty it's almost I think a complete circle.
You'd
Uh,
think that they'd be like separated, but no, they're like fully overlapped,
all
right?
three of them. It's vaccine denying, NFL conspiracies, and the stolen election are all
Yes. Just concentric.
concentric circles. Yes.
It's a unity, basically, right? It's a, yeah.
Yeah. It's one I think, circle.
Yes. Right.
But
Exactly.
speaking of concentric circles, uh, I don't know. Are we ready to finish this episode of the Warner Truck Power
I think so.
Hour? Or yeah, that analogy made no sense, but neither do we sometimes here at the Power Hour. We try to make as much sense as we can, and we try to approach things from different angles, different and different points of view as much as possible. So I think we did some of that today when we talked about our conference championship games, and how maybe unpredictable those can be related to the coming to the Super Bowl. They do not seem to bear much they don't have much impact on the game the next week. Maybe that's something maybe that I don't know. I didn't really think about going into this episode, and also the idea that the NFC has had the uh, by far more blowouts in the NFC Championship game than there have been in the AFC Championship game in the last uh,
Interesting.
30 years or so. So um, we hope the Chiefs will blow out the Eagles in 2 weeks, but or a week and a half when this airs. But we'll see what happens. It'll likely be a very tight game where I wouldn't be surprised if the Chiefs won and the Eagles covered the spread, like you said, on a gentlemanly safety at the end. I really hope that doesn't happen. I hope that Chiefs win going away, but we'll see what happens. The Eagles are a very good team, so we'll see what happens in a week and a half. Oh, one thing we didn't mention was the Pro Bowl games. We are not making Pro Bowl bets this year because there's no place to make Pro Bowl bets, and also I guess nobody cares about the Pro Bowl games, so we won't even mention it next year. The next week, I don't think, unless
Especially
something
us, apparently, right?
crazy.
Like the last couple of years, we've done this big whole promo for the Pro Bowl, and then neither of us even watch games because it doesn't even draw our attentions, even though we're talking about it.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
we're
No,
done. We're not doing
sorry,
this anymore.
sorry, Pro Bowl. So yeah, if you were tuning in for our Pro Bowl preview, we're sorry that we didn't have one this year. You are our lone fan, or two, probably who enjoyed the Pro Bowl. We really got into the deep down nitty gritty of the Pro Bowl that first time the Pro Bowl games came around. We didn't do
Yeah,
quite as much this past season because there wasn't very much information on the Pro Bowl games. We didn't, the Pro Bowl. We didn't mention that Drake May and Russell Wilson made the Pro Bowl rosters for the AFC because Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson each opted out. So it seems like the NFC is probably the advantage in the Pro Bowl in terms of quarterback play, but it doesn't mean they'll win.
it's not a game though. I mean, it's like a flag football or something. Isn't that what they're doing
Plus all
now?
those other weird skills competition games that
Yeah.
um, but
In
I
concept,
think
the skills competitions are kind of cool, but aren't they like in weird times and weird spread out like over days and like some of it's televised and some of it isn't and
yeah, I don't know. We've talked about the Pro Bowl much more now than we promised we were going to. So I think
yeah.
let's just uh
We
table
just don't
that.
we just don't care.
We don't care anymore. We will talk more next week about the Super Bowl, however. And if something crazy happens in the Pro Bowl, I guess maybe we can mention it next week. But we aren't going to be making our bets on the Pro Bowl. But if you are making your bets on the Pro Bowl, we wish you the best of luck. And we can say that we wish you the best of luck no matter your bets, because your interest will not conflict with ours because we have no interests in the Pro Bowl betting this week. So
Not
um,
at all.
So we'll vary our sign off a little bit by saying bet to your heart's desire because your interests definitely will not conflict with ours this week. So take advantage of that, dear viewers and dear listeners. Um, so on that note, as always, I am Dr. Michael Lerman. He is Dr. Andrew Scaff. We are the Morning Trek Power Hour. Please like and or subscribe to our YouTube channel and our podcast, which is available on many different podcast delivery systems. We appreciate your viewership and your listenership, and we look forward to next week's episode where we'll further preview the Super Bowl and discuss any other maybe interesting tidbits that come across our radar next time, but it'll probably mainly be a Super Bowl preview. We again wish you the best of luck on your bets because your interest will not conflict with ours, and you'll have more of our hard-hitting, hair-splitting analysis, as Dr. Scaff alluded to just a moment ago, next time. And our Super Bowl preview is one of our favorite episodes of each year because partly because the Chiefs have been in the Super Bowl pretty much every time we've done a Super Bowl preview. And hopefully if the Chiefs lose the Super Bowl, we won't discontinue the Warren Power Hour for a year or two after we recover. To recover, we did that one our first season. I think the Chiefs lost the Super Bowl. Our first was that our first Warren Power Hour season. The Chiefs
So
lost.
then we took quite a while off. Yeah.
A hiatus of a year or two almost. But the Chiefs have
Was
won
it
the
that
Super Bowl
long?
every other time. This is our
Yeah.
is this season four?
I think, yeah. So I think maybe we took most of a year off or something. Was that something like that?
Because this is season. So this is their. So they won for season two and season three, and they're maybe going to win season four. But they lost in season one, so I guess we did take a year hiatus or
Yeah,
so.
it must have. Yeah.
Yeah, the Ram.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, we
Oh
will
well.
we won't make any promises, but we will hopefully not take a year hiatus if the Chiefs lose the Super Bowl uh, next time. So, but we will take a week's hiatus to recover and to make our bets and to study and you know preview into look into our making our wonderful Super Bowl preview show for next week. So we will we'll set up our team of crack researchers that we have here at the One Trick Power Hour and really
Dive through
find
all the numbers.
they will crunch as many numbers as we can give them and more. Um, and we will come up with something that is going to astound and delight you for sure. And so, from all of us here at the One Track Power Hour, we wish you a pleasant week, and we especially wish you a good day.